Today, just an update on a couple of things. We have 2A on the docket, as always, and much more. A lot more coming up. Hope everybody's doing well, and thank you so much for returning, and thanks so much for everybody that turned out for the stream that started a little bit earlier that was somewhat of a test. So we're probably going to be here on this one for we'll have just about 45 minutes. I have just a couple of updates for you. Shout out to everybody on this Tuesday. Shout out to the loyal patrons and you, the loyal subscribers, Derek C. Williams, Killer Rail Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Little Miss Goth, Chrysler Imperial H, Cold War Jesus, and AZ Infidel, and Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in for the shorts and even for the regularly scheduled. So today is not a regular schedule, but I usually try to bring things in as they come in and bring you as much as I can. So shout out to everybody. Hope you're doing well on your Tuesday. And we have a couple of what I call a couple of centerpieces, a couple of jewels to start out with. And that would be concerning the 2A, which is pretty regularly on the attack. And we also have a bit of an update on some voter fraud, and we have some developments there. So we're going to deal with that specifically in this stream. I thank everybody for tuning in. Hello to Nepal Remillo. Thank you so much for coming in. If you're joining me from Periscope, thank you guys so much for tuning in. These are the first casts that are coming in from Periscope as well as YouTube. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to Megan Meek. Thank you so much for coming in. And also just reminding everybody to keep an eye on your community tabs as well as the Patreon community. I thank you guys so much for all that you do and for making this all work and just helping out in this bit of a technocracy that we deal with around here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. What I will kick off with, however, let's go ahead and start out with the 2A, and that's going to come from our vetted source, the New American, the TNA, known as the TNA around here. So I'm going to kick that one off for you. And we'll have just a few words from our friends at the JBS. Shout out to everybody in the stream. And thank you for taking care with the Channelytics, as always, on the channel. Thank you guys so much. So I'll take you over to our friends at the TNA. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And so we'll kick off with our first segment on this installment of Black Spring with Autumn. So first up, we have from the vetted source, the TNA. This was written on today. Yes, Democrats really do want to take your guns or at least prevent you from owning one. So I'm going to give you the main hacks, if you will. And of course, I will put the rest, and of course, it'll be provided for you in the stream. So this was written by Stephen Neal. And so we'll begin here. So what you see before you is, if adopted, the 2020 Democratic Party platform would be the most vigorous attack on the Second Amendment by a major political party in our nation's history. And also it mentions that in selecting Kamala Harris as a running mate, Joe Biden confirmed that failed Democrat presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke's boast that, quote, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47, was not an idle threat. The platform lays out a roadmap for subverting our gun rights by creating federal laws and using federal money to bribe the states into invading private matters. So according to this, the section of, quote, ending the epidemic of gun violence, end quote, in their 2020 platform, this is the plan featured. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you guys for taking the time and the care with those channelytics. So what we're dealing with first and foremost, the first element in this would be, quote, enact universal background checks. Now, right away, I'm sure most of you that are gun owners or that exercise your Two Amendment, or you are well trained or well versed, that enacting universal background checks is not quite it's not quite unheard of. But according to this is a favorite goal of the liberals that would do very little to lower violent crime or suicide, as even the left-wing Vox reported, quote, establishing a background check system, as the U.S. has already done on a national scale, likely affects, but making the system more comprehensive or universal doesn't seem to have a significant effect on its own, at least at a population level, end quote. But depending on how the law reads, it could open the door to the government requiring a background check, even when gifting a firearm to a family member or friend. All right. And then the second installment here is, quote, end online gun sales and ammunition. Now, it says the federal law already requires all online gun buyers to submit a background check, and firearm has to be delivered to a federal firearms dealer. So ending online gun sales will only raise the cost and decrease the selection of guns a person can legally buy. The same applies to online sales of ammunition, since in most states a person can buy an unlimited amount at a sporting goods shop. Limiting online purchases will only raise the price and limit the choice a person can make on ammo. Of course, this may be the intention, since these laws are really not about saving lives. All right, so your third installment, which I will do much more paraphrasing on, is, quote, close the Charleston loophole, which, according to this is a misnomer. Quote, Charleston loophole is not really a loophole, but a 3-day proceed to sale provision. And under current law, the commercial firearm sales require the buyer to undergo a background check to buy a gun. And if the results do not come back within 3 business days, the seller has the option of completing the sale, but is not required to. So I'm going to continue here and quote the next one, which is the fourth one, is to ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high capacity magazines, end quote. Now, put simply, according to this, the U.S. Supreme Court decision 2008 District of Columbia versus Heller prohibits such a ban. As the court concluded in Heller, the Second Amendment protects firearms that are, quote, in common use at the time for, quote, lawful purposes like self-defense, end quote, with semi-automatic rifles often incorrectly dubbed as, quote, assault weapons, end quote. being the most popular firearms in America, they fall into, quote, in common use at the time category. So I will be putting that link out for you so you can continue with this, but we'll keep going with the other installments. The quote incentivize states to enact licensing requirements for owning firearms. Now, this statement should send chills down anyone's spine who values freedom, because the government will not stop with licensing requirements for firearms. The radical left will push through any number of policy changes and rely on greed of the individual states to enact them. Number 6, quote, pass legislation requiring that guns be safely stored in homes, end quote. Who decides what, quote, safely stored, end quote, means? And how would this requirement be enforced? Are they planning to have compliance officers check each gun owner's home for compliance? Or how can a firearm be, quote, safely stored and accessible at the same time? And for the final installment here, quote, prioritize repealing the law that shields gun manufacturers from civil liability, end quote. Democrats mean to repeal, quote, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, end quote, which offers liability protection to firearms manufacturers. Revoking these protections will undoubtedly bankrupt several, if not all, firearms manufacturers, which is likely their intention. Now, according to this, Biden's, quote, gun safety page on his campaign website states that the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, end quote, protects the manufacturers from being held civilly liable for their products. Protection granted to no other industry. Biden will prioritize repealing this protection, end quote. Perhaps the, quote, independent fact checkers, end quote, forgot to remind Joe of the, quote, National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. Concern over a party intent on limiting, banning, and confiscating our firearms will simultaneously demanding the defunding of the police and supporting the violent criminals in BLM and Antifa might even cause MADS, Alfred E. Newman, to begin to worry. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thank you guys from Periscope. Shout out to Fluid Shoda. Thank you so much for coming in. Shout out to JT Waterman. Thank you guys so much for coming in for this brief segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I thank you guys for coming in earlier on a test. So this is the first day that I am actually doing streaming on more than one platform today. So I appreciate you guys so much for the support, and for those of you that are the loyal subscribers from YouTube, you can see that the link for the Periscope is in the stream right now. Thank you guys so much for all that you do, as well as a couple of other links. But we've talked about this before, and thank you so much, Fluid Shada. Thank you. And hi, shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Thank you so much for coming in. And Crazy Chick Sheena, I'm going to read your comment. Thank you so much. It's like what happened in Australia, take guns back. I think it happened a few years back. It's a socialist agenda. Well, you're right. You're definitely in a hot spot there, Crazy Chick Sheena. It's like we're starting to trail. We're starting to trail quite a few. We're starting to track a few things that are not quite American or liberating. Much less liberty is definitely the threat here. So shout out to everybody in the stream. JT Waterman, thank you so much for being here. You says they have those laws in Iowa called 3-day waiting period for them to check to make sure you are safe to own a gun. But when carry permits came to be, the sheriffs gave the permits to everyone. Shout out to everyone in the stream. Well, we've talked about this before in terms of the HR 5717, and I think that will give you more details. Of course, I gave you the JBS source on this measure, but of course it's also cited the Joe Biden's page, his campaign page. So you guys might want to take a look at those things. I mean, most people that are loyal patrons or subscribers on Black Spring with Autumn, they are pretty, I don't want to use the word woke, but I'll say they're pretty astute and they're pretty attuned to what's going on. So it's anytime you come in, if anything is something that's inspiring or something that's for your edification, then that's what it's about. We also try to do solution based things around here. So also check out the mask. Check out the mask hacks on the community tab if you're around. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming in. So just really quick, just a reminder that the HR 5717 that's a house act that of course is already sitting in the house. And the thing about it is, if there is a regime change, for the lack of a better word, these things pose a real threat, and it's channeling the UN agenda's peace component of their Agenda 2030. So you guys can always look that up. But I always encourage here that, this is not your only lot. This is not your only framework. This is not your only perspective. This is my work, and this is what I'm offering on this channel. So there's a lot of information out there, but these days you have to dig deep for the truth. The truth is pretty thick these days. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So that particular act, the HR 5717, is actually the Gun Violence Prevention and Community Safety Act of 2020. So that's the beginning. That's there again, like I said, during these lockdowns, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I know we've talked, quite a bit about, we've kind of chewed over what we saw on the RNC, the convention, the speakers, and that kind of a bit. And that's all great. I'm less concerned. I'm less concerned than more or less concerned than I've ever been when it comes to the left-right paradigm at this point. It's more about who's going to preserve our human and our natural rights. Who's doing that? And more of who's voting with who's more constitutionally conscious. And that's why I say, take a look at these people's profiles, and it gets to be, I'm telling you, the gray area, the scoring is so low. It's you really have to, and it kind of comes down to the whole rhino, the whole neocon, the whole culture of what we're dealing with this left-right paradigm. It gets to be sticky. I will say that the right has much more of it appears that they are more constitutionally conscious, but the scoring that I see and the actions that I'm seeing and the silence and the complicity that I see is very disheartening in these times. I do not shy away from saying that. And when I see something that I think is not quite, it's not on the level, I have to call it out, or at least give myself some time before I call it out here. So I'm certainly not a Democrat. I will say, and I've admitted that on this page, I'm not. And when it comes to the red pill and these types of a bit, I voted for Barack Obama twice. That's been on the level. But did I exit? Am I a red pilled person, or did I a real walk away? Am I really a representative of that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the spectrum of people liberating themselves. If I fit into any of that, I'm not really concerned about that. But you can read the mission or the objective if you want for more of my convictions, and then you'll find out where they lean the more you hang out here, the more you come here. And I really appreciate you guys for being here, because you guys make the difference, and you guys are what makes this actually work. So shout out to Fluid. Shout out why well, it's certainly at this point, it's blue state. It's run by these liberals and progressives. And I have no idea what their aspirations are for 2024, but believe me, it's going to be somebody much more progressive. I would imagine it's going to be somebody much more progressive and much more radical, even than the characters, the elements that you're dealing with right now. Shout out to David Furman, AZ Infidel. I do. There are very specific things that I recognize, and am I one of these people that are going to say, "Oh, well, they're the same"? No, I won't say that. No, they're not. Not. I can't say that, and I will say but I will also say that I don't believe that there's 100% that you can wage 100% when it comes to these neocons and these rhinos, because they've shown themselves. And you've got. I mean, I was just saying, even for this convention, like, please don't fill up this program with a bunch of people that are voting with Democrats. Do not. Please do not fill up these programs. I mean, if they vote with Democrats, then what are they? Shout out to everybody in the stream. Yes, Lightfoot is a walking time bomb, and I'm not sure what it's going to take. Some people cannot stop voting Democrat. I don't have any socio-emotional advice for that. I don't. Maybe they want socio-emotional directors to come out and serve the people. Maybe that's what they want. And they've almost turned the school systems into that when it comes to discipline versus fix the problem, alleviate the problem. They want you to regurgitate a whole bunch of theories that psychoanalysis, which are you going to teach, or are you going to be a counselor, or are you going to be a social worker? And that leaves the other kids distracted, and the use of classroom time is not efficient. Shout out to everybody in the stream. And shout out to everybody in the stream. Okay. All right. So there you go. All right. So with all that said, let's move on to our last. This is a mini segment, which is quite. It's pretty abbreviated, this segment, because this is not my normal stream day. My normal stream days are Monday, Wednesdays at 9 PST, and that is your 12 noon EST and your 11 CST. And Mountain Time, I always manage to get that wrong. So I'll let you guys do the translation on that. Shout out to Bojan Stevanovic. How are you? Thank you so much for coming in. Shout out to AZ's Infidel. Thank you, AZ Infidel. It's a little trickery on that. Thanks so much for coming in. So I'm going to move you guys on to a bit of a shout out to Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for coming in. Shout out to you. So, okay. So what we're going to do is we have a little bit from Breitbart, and it speaks to voter fraud. Voter fraud, man arrested in LA for voting 3 times as his dead mother. Ay, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Yikes. You guys see anything? No problem here. No problem here at all with mail-in voting, right? None. All right, so I'm going to share this with you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming in. So what you have before you is, this comes from Judicial Watch. All right. So from Breitbart, a man from Norwalk, California in Los Angeles County was arrested and charged last month for voting 3 times as his dead mother, as well as voting for himself, the Los Angeles District Attorney announced in a statement on Tuesday. The DA's office said a Norwalk man has been charged with allegedly casting votes in 3 elections on behalf of his mother, who passed away. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office announced today that Cesar Peter Obutan was charged in case BA 4888819 with 1 felony count each of fraud in connection with votes cast and fraudulent voting. He pleaded not guilty today and is scheduled to return for preliminary hearing setting on October 28th in Department 50 of Foltz Criminal Justice Center. Now, the case was filed for warrant on July 31st. The Deputy District Attorney Marion Thompson of Public Integrity Division is prosecuting the case. Between October 2012 and November 2014, Obutan is accused of voting in 3 elections, claiming to be his 67-year-old mother, who passed away in July of 2006, while also casting votes for himself. The charges were announced, coincidentally, in the midst of the Democratic National Convention, as Democrats accused President Donald Trump of exaggerating the potential for voter fraud in his push against automatic vote by mail. So we'll continue a little bit here. That's not heavy enough. All right, so here's the follow-up story, or the original story that was covered by Breitbart. So, when people make the case, or they say, well, they're not actually making the case. Well, they'll say, oh, well, Hillary Clinton says it's fine. Or I guess what's the next hierarchy after that? Who else is going to say it's fine? Barack Obama says it's fine. But the only thing I will circle back to is as a report that I gave you last week, in which the FEC's, or the commissioner, stated herself that election night would not yield the results of the 2020 presidential election. So I cannot imagine that it would, with, you've got a little bit of a snowball going on already. It's, if they tie this thing up in court, what can go wrong? Shout out to everybody in the stream. And then earlier today, I'm going to try to end this on an up note, if I can, on a higher note, or some positivity. I mean, it's not my goal to report negativity or the chaos, but it's there. What can I do? Encourage you to look into these matters for yourselves, and find out where your voter registration offices are, your county offices, and know if you're planning to vote in person where that is, if they're changing those locations, how many days do you have, and plan accordingly. That's the way you can arm yourself, because I talk about here all the time that most of your power as a citizen is at the city or your county level. The more remote, whether it's state officials or federal, the less access you have and the longer it takes. So shout out to everyone in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And so with that said, we are going to, let's see, in about 12 minutes, we will end this stream, but tomorrow is the regular stream at 9 PST. This was an extra stream for those of you that are new around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share something really quickly on Kimberly Klacik, which she is running for the late Elijah Cummings seat, which to me is pretty high profile. But from what I understand, as I stated earlier, I was getting the impression that not all the networks picked up the first night of the convention, and I think there were all kinds of distractions going out prior to that. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about, well, at least I'm going to show you this campaign ad, and then just follow it up a little bit with Kimberly Klacik making a statement of her own convictions and why she's running, and the difference that she's wanting to make. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn, and thank you guys so much for taking care with the Channelytics, and shout out to everybody or anybody that's here directly from the Periscope stream. So we are doing a duo cast right now, and I can appreciate you guys so much for all that you do. And we're going to pick up the ad. From Kim Klacik. Thank you guys so much. And I assume that maybe I'll continue to watch for a night too. You know, it's a convention. What can I say? I think the meat. I don't want to say that that there's fat and then there's meat, but I'll say I think that the fat happens like earlier in the daytime, and then you get to the meat like later in the stream. So however you want to put that, for the lack of a better analogy there. So shout out to everybody in the stream. So I will be sharing the actual commercial, the ad rather. I think this ad has picked up quite a bit of traction, and I'm going to show it right now. Shout out to David Furman. Thank you so much for joining me.
Do you care about Black lives? The people that run Baltimore don't. I can prove it. Walk with me. They don't want you to see this. I'm Kim Klacik. This is Baltimore, the real Baltimore. This is the reality for Black people every single day. Crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, poverty, and crime. Baltimore has been run by the Democrat Party for 53 years. What is the result of their decades of leadership? Baltimore is one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. The murder rate in Baltimore is 10 times the US average. The Baltimore poverty rate is over 20%. Homicide, drug, and alcohol deaths are skyrocketing in our city. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? I do. The vast majority of crime in Baltimore is perpetrated against Black people, who make up 60% of the population. So why don't we care about our communities? The Democrat Party have betrayed the Black people of Baltimore. If the politicians walked the streets like I do, they would see exactly how their policies and corruption affects us. But they don't want to see it. They don't want you to see this. Go to any Baltimore neighborhood and ask this question. Do you want to defund the police?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
I had 3 sons killed in Baltimore City. And I think if we defund the police office, it's going to be worse than that. So, no, I'm opposed to that.
What are you going to defund the police for? Why? How do you defend your city, your community? Families are losing people.
It's not just Baltimore. The worst place for a Black person to live in America is a Democrat-controlled city. It's 2020. Name a blue city where Black people's lives have gotten better. Try. I'll wait. Look at this. How are children supposed to live here and play here? Democrats think Black people are stupid. They think they can control us forever. That we won't demand better and that we'll keep voting for them forever, despite what they've done to our families and our communities. Are they right? I'm Kim Klacik, and I'm running for Congress because I actually care about Black lives. All Black lives matter. Our communities matter. Baltimore matters. And Black people don't have to vote Democrat.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for being here. And yes, that was Kimberly Klasick. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. However, I do want to shout out everybody in the stream. Shout out to JT Waterman. Thank you so much. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Shout out to David Furman. Shout out to Fluid Shada. Not sure if I'm getting that in right. Shout out to AZ Infidel. Thank you so much for all that you do. Shout out to Megan Meek. Shout out to Bohan Stevanovic. Shout out to Let the Truth Be Told. Shout out to Crazy Chick Sheena. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone. And we are going to be wrapping up this particular stream pretty soon here. But I did have CNN. I did have an article from CNN that fact check. I'm going to drop this in the stream so you can see it for yourself. You know, you got the guardians or the custodians of the Constitution, and you've got the custodians of veracity. From CNN. You can't go wrong there, right? It's like, but see, there you go. They want for the people that are still, I really don't want to insult anyone here, but and this is not for you guys, but for the low information voter, or for those people that are just waiting for CNN or Don Lemon to tell them how to feel, then maybe you need them to give you some propaganda, and that's what they've got for you. So just according to, CNN, they're going to facts first, check that, fact checked. First night of the Republican National Convention features more dishonesty than 4 nights of the DNC. Whoa. Well, I can't tell. I can't tell because first of all, they didn't have the deletes of Hollywood dripping as the hostess and making, stale jokes and trying to create some collage. It was just bizarre. But aside from that, they did attempt to fact check, and I will put that in the stream for you. So they talked about the campaign promises, and some people are going to take this as fact. Just because somebody gives you something doesn't mean it's actually the truth. So if you're going to take those facts, take their word for facts and go ahead and do that. Facts first. So I don't know. I would imagine that it was just as annoying as you going on social media and you read something and all of a sudden you can't even view it before you hit the fact checker button. And is it you still want to watch it? It's like, that's kind of desperate, right? You're allowed to put that there. You're allowed to insert that the notion that it needed to be fact checked, but then you also leave after they read your fact check statement or your propaganda, then you still want to watch or you still want to read this document. I would think that would be hard to watch, but I will tell you, this is a plural of hearsay. This is not, I didn't watch it from CNN, but I did hear that MSN, they cut away during Klasick's campaign. So, and that's, I can believe that. It's not unusual. What have they been doing the whole time? So let's see, maybe we have one more. Let's see if I can play this one. Then we're going to close this one out. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in. So I'm going to share this one with you. And this one comes from the Baltimore CBS Global. So let's see if this one works.
Your wild child does. Pampers.
Uh-oh, looks like I'm behind a little bit. Or something's not quite matching up here. Uh-oh. Okay, so it looks like we have a little bit of buffering there, but you guys get the gist here. I think you should just tune in and do your own diligence in these times, and you won't be sorry. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it on this Tuesday, and hoping you guys are staying cool wherever you are, and that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. Oh, the rapper says, I know some Black Democrats call Van Jones the N-word. Well, I'm not surprised. It's in their patina. It's what they do. They've got quite a few people well groomed. I gotta say, they've taught Democrats not only teach their tactics, but they also groom their people to do the same thing to other people. They groom each other to victimize other people. So that's pretty par for the course. I appreciate you guys for coming in for the bits on Tuesday. So thank you guys so much for coming in and taking care of your Channelytics. And I'll see you guys around on the next live stream in the comment section, maybe on a Moonlight stream. But thank you so much for coming in, and thank you so much for tuning in over on Periscope. You guys have a great rest of the day. No, you did not, Old Head Deuce. I don't know. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance one will happen. It wasn't quite a rant. No, not quite a rant. Just a mini bits on today. So not quite. Yes, JT Waterman. I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's oppressive. This wind is oppressive. It's like pretty amazing. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you guys around. Thank you so much, Old Head Deuce, for coming in. You guys take care.